Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
I am so pleased to welcome you to program number 2 of our series, which is a very long series, Journey Through Time, Dialogue with Great Minds from History. It is called the Chautauqua Format, and we've had on our campus in March 2006 these wonderful performers. And today I welcome to the program Mona Klinger, a great friend who has a baccalaureate and master's degree in speech communication and teaches at North Idaho College, and she's a master at the Chautauqua Format. And she is here today to portray Mary Kay Ash, who lived from 1918 to 2001. Mary Kay Ash grew up in rather poverty, but she became a very successful business person, and at the time of her death, she had over 800,000 representatives in 37 countries with a retail sale of over $2 billion a year, known as the Mary Kay Cosmetics. With that, I'm so pleased to welcome to the program in this Chautauqua Format, Mary Kay Ash. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Tony, and I want to thank you very much for having me here at North Idaho College. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho has to be God's country.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here.
And before you continue, Tony, you have been so kind to me. I know you're not from Texas, but you are a true Southern gentleman, isn't he?
Yes. I do come from the South.
Yeah.
And with that, I introduce our panel. First of all, it's Janelle Burke, who's an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Erna Reinhardt, who is the Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and Janelle will commence today's questioning.
Mary Kay, please tell us a little bit about your background. How did you grow up?
Well, I have to say that my life is the rags to riches story, and I am the American dream. I was born in Hot Wells, Texas, well, I'm not going to tell you the year I was born, because I think a woman who would tell her age will tell anything. Let's just say I'm 30 through. I've had some people try to guess my age, and they often think I'm older than I really am. But anyway, to answer your question, I was born in Hot Wells, Texas, but we moved to Houston because my father, he became disabled, completely disabled from TB, and he was confined to a wheelchair. And so my mother, bless her heart, she had to find a way to support the family. Now, she had been trained as a nurse, but in those days a nurse was no better than a house servant. So she took a job as the manager of a little diner. She worked 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. And very interestingly, my life as a child was not like most children. From the time I was about 6 years old, I was completely in charge of my father. I had to care for him, I had to cook for him, and you can imagine some of the meals that an 8-year-old would cook for their father. But my mother, she was always there by the telephone, ready to answer any questions I had. So I had very much poverty in my life as I was growing up.
Thank you.
Erna Reinhardt.
Mary Kay, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. You obviously are a very, very, very successful businesswoman. Share with us what your first business venture was and how that took you to the next level.
Well, I have to tell you a little bit about the fact that when I was going to high school, I was a wonderful student. I was straight A's. I finished high school in just 3 years, and I longed to be a doctor. But going back to the idea that my life, I was very poor, and in those days we didn't have Pell Grants and student loans, and so I got married at 17. I had 3 children, and I married a young man that in my 17-year-old eyes, he was like Elvis Presley, but he was only worked at a filling station, and he was a part-time disc jockey and had his own group called the Hawaiian Strummers. Well, he was called away to serve our country in World War II. And while he was gone, I had to be the totally emotional support for my 3 children, and also GI doesn't make much money, so I had to bring in some money for the family also. And I started selling books door to door, and I found out that I had a little bit of a talent for that. Well, when my husband came back from the war, he was a changed man. We had been married a number of years, and he just decided he didn't want to be married to me anymore. There was another woman, and we got a divorce, and I was completely devastated. So not only was I the total emotional support for my children. Now, there was no alimony, no child support, so I had to provide for my 3 children and myself. And I had a little talent with the selling bookstore to door, and I decided that I needed to perhaps use that talent selling products. So I joined the Stanley Home Products Company. Now, this was the originator of the kind of party way of selling things, where they have a party and you go and you buy the products. Well, we sold such things as toothbrushes, furniture cream, laundry soap, and I was terrible. Here I had hoped to be able to provide for my family, and I was terrible. So you want to know what happened? Mm-hmm. Well, I decided that I would go to their national convention. I had to borrow $12 to take a train from Houston to Dallas to the convention where supposedly only wicked men went. And I only owned 1 dress at the time. I didn't even have a suitcase. And in order to save money, I took my Stanley sample bag and I put a pound of cheese in there and a box of crackers, and that's what I ate for the 3 days I was gone. But those 3 days literally changed my life. This is how I got into business. I was in the auditorium, and there I was, watching the people get awards for being the best salespeople. And I was way up at the top in that auditorium because I was the worst. And I looked at the lady down there who was the queen of sales, and I decided right there and then that next year I would be the queen of sales, and that did happen. I put a plan into action, and the next year I was on that stage. So I continued with Stanley Home Products, and after a while, though, I'd been there for over 10 years, I wasn't going anywhere. And I decided that I would see if I could move up in the corporate world. And every time in the Stanley Home Products that a door opened, a man walked through. So I went to a different company called World Gifts, and I was so successful, I opened 42 states to their product line. I became the national sales director. I trained the salespeople, and I trained the trainers. And eventually, you know what happened? I was asked to train an assistant. I was very excited about that because I felt finally I was going to higher levels in the corporation. And after a year of training this young man, teaching him everything I knew, I was called into my boss's office, and he said, "Mary Kay, you're not going to get that raise. And in fact, the young man that you've been training for a year, he was now going to be my supervisor, and he was going to get double my salary." So I quit right there. The man, my boss, you know what he said? He said, "You know, Mary Kay, you in that position just will not do. A woman will not do in that position." And he also said, maybe you can relate to this back in our past a little bit, he said, "You know, of course a man needs more money than a woman because, after all, he has to support his family." And this was coming from a boss that I had worked for more than 10 years, and he knew that I had always supported my children. So I went home and I retired, and I hated that. I think retirement is like death.
Let's go from this point then. You did something in your presentation to the students today that, and then I'm going to follow you through your great success with the Mary Kay Cosmetics, but from your mother and later from your children and all, something that you inspired the audience with here, and particularly the young people, is you've lived by a certain, I guess you'd call it a theme or a focus about how you have been encouraged, and then you encourage others. And certainly when we talk about your corporation, that happened. Tell our viewing audience what guided you in your determination.
I'm so glad you asked me that question, because the answer is you have to be a possibility thinker. And no matter what you are doing, you tell yourself you can do it. And that guided me. My mother, when I was feeling down, I didn't know how to make potato soup, for example. When my father asked me, I'd call her on the phone and she would say, "Mary Kay, you just relax. You can do it." And that's the same thing after I went to the convention. I went to the president of the company and I said, "You know, next year I'm going to be the queen of sales." And he said, "I think you can do it." And that's the kind of philosophy that I have lived by, and that's what I encourage our independent sales consultants to do also.
So it became the guide for your whole life.
Absolutely.
Now, after your husband divorced, I'm going to go back a little bit. You've had a lot of very unfortunate tragedies in your life. Your second husband, you married, and you're sitting at the kitchen table after 4 weeks of marriage, and he dies of a heart attack.
Yes.
And then you married a third time, and your husband dies of cancer.
Yes.
So, but because of this theme you have and this focus, with all of both the financial problems you had and with the tragedies, you absolutely refuse to be defeated.
Well, I have an idea here, and that is we learn from tragedies, we learn from what we call failures. I say that you fall forward to success. You fall forward to success. And the more scabs you have on your knees, it probably means the higher you're going to emerge. And so when I've had these tragedies in my life, I just say, well, there's something in here. I think God has His hand in this, and we just decide that we're going to move forward. That's the point. You learn from what the tragedies, you learn from your failures.
But your corporate success and all, you didn't put that first. You have a recommendation for your people and for society in general. What is the 3 orders that you give to emphasis?
That's one of my principles. The Mary Kay Way, I call it. You know that my principles, my Mary Kay Way, it is taught in MBA programs across this great nation now. And one of my principles do not change. We put God first, we put our family second, and we put our career third. Can you imagine a boss of a company, a CEO, telling their people that you put your career third? And I'm telling you, though, if you have your priorities straight, God first, family second, career third, things will work out.
And with that, let's go. You borrowed, I believe, $5,000.
Yes.
You said, I've had it with these corporations where there's what we call today the glass ceiling. Mm-hmm. And from that, you wound up, by the end of your life, with 800,000 representatives in 37 countries and at least $2 billion. What I'd like for you to do now for our viewers is to talk about how you did that, how you recruited all these people, and I think your success had to do with if people were determined and would follow your plan. You created, I believe, more than any other person ever, more women to become worth at least $1 million. Tell us what your plan was and how, both then and now, how it operates.
Well, first of all, I did not borrow the $5,000, Tony. I believe in paying cash for everything. So I had $5,000.
Okay.
It was just about my life savings. And it is true with my second husband, I had been unmarried for over 20 years. We decided after I retired that we would start a company. And it took me a year to decide what to do, and that's where I came across the cosmetic industry. And my husband and I, he was going to be in charge of the business side, and I was going to be in charge of the marketing and the sales. And we took that $5,000 because he died, and I thought I couldn't go on. And that's where that You Can Do It came in. I had my children who were now young adults. They were the ones who said, Mother, if anybody can, you can do it. And that's how we got started. Now that's what I tell my independent beauty consultants, and I have to correct you. We now have more than 1 million independent beauty consultants in Mary Kay. And we even are in countries such as Mexico, Africa, and the former Soviet Union, where women are finding they can be independently wealthy if they just work real hard. And I do contend that you have to follow a plan. Some people do not succeed, but you got to work the plan for the plan to work for you. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I have one more, and then I'll go back to the panel. And you certainly did. So when individuals come on to work for your corporation, how do you divide when they bring in X amount of business, what percentage do they get? And then talk about the famous story that you give jewelry from the company, you give pink Cadillacs, I believe over 10,000 of them. Just tell our audience, you do something in your policy that initiates such a drive in those working for you.
Well, our consultants do receive a 50% commission on the retail sales, which is a very generous kind of thing.
So for all the sales, they get 50%?
50%. And by the way, if a person purchases something from Mary Kay, we give 90% return on that product, even if it's used at any time. So we run our company by the golden rule. That's another one of my principles. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you, and that works every time also. Now, we do provide our independent beauty consultants with awards. They go to certain levels, a certain amount of sales, and when they do that as an encouragement, we give them prizes. For example, we give them things they really might want, like diamonds. Sometimes we give them beautiful vacations, and of course the pink Cadillac. Now, the reason I started this, Tony, was because when I was the queen of sales with Stanley Home Products, well, the year before, when I saw that woman getting the queen of sales, one of the reasons I decided I was going to become the queen of sales was because they gave her this beautiful alligator bag, something I knew that in my life I could never buy for myself. And I thought, that's why I want to become queen of sales. You know, when I became the queen of sales next year, you know what they gave me? A flounder light. A flounder light. I didn't even know what it was. You know what it is? No. It's some kind of light that you use when you go fishing, fly fishing or something. And I decided right there and then, if ever I had the opportunity to provide our queen of sales, our sales ladies, with something, I would give them something they really would like a diamond or one of those pink Cadillacs.
You gave away over 10,000.
We've given over 10,000. Well, that's in 1 year. Well, at any given time, we have 10,000 Cadillacs out there.
So you really have kept one of the automobile companies going well.
Oh, yes. And what we do is we buy the Cadillac. We actually buy it, and we provide 85% of the insurance, and they can turn them in every year, and so they always. And it doesn't have to be a pink Cadillac. That's just kind of one of those things that urban legend. But most ladies like that pink Cadillac.
Okay. What a generous gift. Janelle Burke.
During your lifetime, you've seen a great rise in the feminist movement. Mm-hmm. And can you tell our viewers how you relate to that?
Well, I think I'm the original feminist because the whole reason that I started my company, my mission statement, is to provide women with an opportunity to succeed. Now, that was in 1963. But I also believe that, God created the world, and he said, that's good. And then he created men, and he said, well, that's good. But then he said, I can do better. I'm going to create a woman. And so I believe that your femininity is God-given, and women should use their femininity to be successful in business. If a woman is going to be successful in business, she should not act like a man. She should act like a woman. And a woman needs to use her femininity. She needs to use her intuition. She needs to use, market knowledge and product knowledge. And she needs to be stubborn, and she needs to have guts, and she needs lipstick.
Thank you.
Erna Reinhardt.
You are so passionate about what you do. I can just tell that you love what you do.
I do.
Share with us, because I don't think you've really told us yet, why it was cosmetics that caught your eye, and why was it cosmetics that you decided to...
Well, because I'd been using them for 108 years, my dear. I wanted a product. I'd sold the furniture creams and the toothbrushes, and I'd sold the decorations for the home, and I sold books. And I wanted to find a product that would be inflation-proof, it would be depression-proof. It's something that people would want every day. And women always want to look beautiful. There is no such thing as an ugly woman. There are only lazy women. And the Mary Kay industry teaches women to look beautiful. So that's why I chose that. I knew nothing about cosmetics, actually.
Excellent.
You have a lot of famous sayings, and I want some of those be shared with our viewers. You just gave one as an example, but you have this other wonderful statement where you talk about how you look when you go to bed and how you look when you get up.
Well, Tony, I'm surprised you'd ask that of a lady, but I'll answer your question anyway. I'm saying that, it is not easy to look nice all the time. You know that. It's a challenge, and I certainly know that. Every night when I go to bed, I try to look like Elizabeth Taylor, but no matter what, I wake up the next morning looking just like Charles de Gaulle. And so I decided that I should look nice for my husband. He deserves that. So I started, not just for looking nice for my husband, but I started the 5 a.m. club. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and if you do that every morning, or at least 6 days a week, you have a 9-day week. And in that extra time, I get up and I do things that normally would take away from my family or from my husband. I take that time to make my husband a nice meal, and I take that time to make myself look nice. I think he deserves that.
Something else that your corporation has done and has received attention, you do have a nonprofit foundation.
I do.
Talk to us about that, and you've raised much money going to that, and what are your favorite charities?
Well, that's one of the things I'm very proud of. We use our money in a responsible way. We've made a tremendous profit in our company. And we started our Mary Kay Foundation, and we have given literally tens of millions of dollars away to different charities. But my two favorite, and the reason I started the foundation primarily, was A Cure for Cancer. That's what killed my last husband, took my last husband's life, and also for an end to domestic violence. I think that's a concern of all women. And so that's what we have done. And you know, just last night somebody printed out these pages for me, and if you looked at it, it's a little bitty tiny type on here, and it gives recognition for our foundation and for the awards that our company has received and for what I have received. We try to do a lot of good things with our money. Part of the golden rule, you know.
Janelle Burke.
Your products are very good.
Yes, they are.
And so tell us something about product development and how important it is to sell something that's good as opposed to something
that's
that's
so
just
important.
selling.
We have developed more than 200 products ourselves. We have an on-site chemistry area. And you know, there's this old story about how I started my company. It was tanning chemicals. You know, when you took a hide and you made it so it was soft and everything, and that's the originator of our company, was tanning materials. But we haven't used that in a very long time. We've tried to keep up with the current developments. We need sunscreen now, and we keep right on the cutting edge. Right now, we have a wonderful product, Mini Dermavision, and I'm telling you, it would make you look beautiful, even more beautiful than you are. You could use it too, Tony.
Well, I might be too late for me. I'm not sure.
Oh, no.
When you said there are no ugly women, just lazy, so maybe that applies to men also. According to what you said about God creating women, though, that may not be the same for men. With that, Erna Reinhardt.
Mary Kay, you're such a motivator, I think, also, and that's probably a huge part of your company's success is motivating all of your salespeople. What would you say are some of the key foundations to keep people motivated in what they're doing, especially in a business situation?
You praise people to success. You praise people to success. Sometimes we have ladies come in and, well, the first party that I had after I started my Mary Kay business, I went out and I sold $1.50's worth of products. $1.50. That was a failure. And today we have young ladies in our Mary Kay business, and they come back and maybe they sold $1.50. And you know what we say? Oh, you did a wonderful job. I know you can do it. And so they go back with a little more confidence, and they go back and they come back. Maybe they sell $2 worth, and we say, oh, you're doing much better. So we praise people to success. You know, it doesn't do you any good to make people feel like failures. So that's a primary motivator. And then every year we have a seminar in Dallas, and that's where I come and I speak to my daughters. Some people have said it's a combination of a Broadway show and a revival meeting. And we get people charged up and happy to sell Mary Kay products.
Great.
Also, in relation to your the people who work for your corporation, you're talking about there's so many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Of all those who start with your company, some are more successful than others, and I assume some quit. Tell us what the kind of statistics are about the success of those who work for you.
Well, I only like to think about the successes. Mm-hmm. I think people who are not successful, Mary Kay was not for them. It can't be for everybody. But you know, what you have to do when you start something like sales, you're going to have failures in sales. So you have to have a plan, and we do provide our people with a plan. In fact, when I became the Queen of Sales for Stanley Home Products, I decided that I had to hitch my wagon to a star. And that's why I went and talked to the Queen of Sales, and I asked her what she did. We do that for our people, too. And if you hitch your wagon to a star, what you got to do then, you have to get on the railroad track and ride those rails. If the plan is successful for somebody, if you follow that plan, you'll be successful too. So I would say that maybe most of our people make maybe $10,000 a year, but that may be for 3 or 4 or 5 hours a week. You tell me a part-time job where you work 2 or 3 or 5 hours a week and you make $10,000. But we also have many women in our company who are millionaires. In fact, I just was talking to a lady the other day, $17,000 a month. Now that's a pretty good little profit for selling lipstick.
And other products.
And other products.
Also, you have written some books. We were almost out of time, but tell us the books you've written. Just the title of them.
I've written 4. Miracles Happen, The Mary Kay Way. I can't think of the other one right now. Well, I have the 2 right now, but they all made it to the bestseller list. And some of those principles are taught in MBA programs right now.
So I was going to say, all your books that you've written are about your plan or how people can succeed.
They're about my life, to inspire other people. If I'm the rags to riches story, people will read that and they say, hey, I can do it too. Some of my books are about my plan for business, and that's where things are taken out and taught in the MBA programs. And so I hope that my books kind of run the gamut for people.
So you're a motivator.
I hope I am. I'm a possibility thinker, that's what I am.
Yes, and that motivates other people.
I hope so.
Yes, and they adopt some of your rules and plans. Ladies and gentlemen, we have today done part 2 of a rather long series. There will be many weeks on our symposium this year at North Idaho College called Journey Through Time, Dialogue with Great Minds from History. For you who are not familiar with the Chautauqua format, you have scholars and other individuals who spend many months learning about a particular human being in history, and then they play that character. And it's a tremendous way of learning, and I hope on this series that you will agree with that. You retain such a high percentage of having that opportunity to go back in history and feel that you've been in the presence of someone who was very, very interesting and fascinating in history. Mary Kay Ash has been played today by Mona Klinger, who's on the faculty at North Idaho College, and I must say she is a true professional. She can go from character to character with remarkable success. She has done Mother Teresa for us, she has done Margaret Sanger, and now she's done Mary Kay Ash. And I think you'll agree with us that in her presence, you don't think of Mona Klinger, you think of the character she's playing. Thank you again, Mary Kay Ash, for being with us today on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, please be with us again next week at the same time, and we'll do part 3 of this series dealing with famous people in history. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.